Hey, everybody, and thank you so much for joining Britt Miller. That's me, and my new podcast, So Confused with Britt Miller, where it's real talk, real issues, no jargon, no fakeness. We're going to have real talk about what's going on today. Because I don't know about you, but I am really confused. So I've got some great guests in my hip pocket that I'm going to be introducing. But today I have a powerhouse HR professional who has seen his way all facets, all areas of HR. And he is an HRBP at this time. And I am so happy to have London Evans, my colleague, my friend, with me today. So thank you so much, London.
Thank you so much, Britt, for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity. I learned some things from the world famous Britt Miller, so I have to thank you
Oh
for
my
that for
goodness.
some of those things as
Mm.
well. And always an awesome colleague.
No, I'll tell everybody a secret. We would always come together and see if at our previous employer and come up with some really crazy ideas. And it was good. We had fun. So let's get right into the conversation. I am so, again, excited to talk to you. Let's talk about an HRBP. So, what is an HRBP, which is an HR business partner? So, to take it down there.
Yeah, so an HR business partner is someone, in my view, who is strategically aligned to the business and they operate in full retrospect of talent management, performance management, and delivering the business objectives and goals, and really creating strategies around how to meet those business objectives and goal in conjunction with the business. That's how I look at an HR business partner. And when you think about it broadly, it encompasses so much. It encompasses employee engagement, it encompasses succession planning, it encompasses influence, leadership, it encompasses so much, but it also involves employees, right? It involves those individuals who work within this organization or team. I would say the focus is two things: talent management and performance management. And I was going to say, so when you talk about equity from a business partner perspective or from an HR business partner perspective, it's something that's there and that you are thinking about as an HR business partner. Is it
Mm.
something that every or each HR business partner thinks about in their role? I can't say that answer is confidently yes. However, is it something as an HR business partner that I've always thought about? And that answer would be yes.
Yes. Yes. I know. I've worked with you, so yes.
Just simply because I think from a equitable standpoint, you want to make sure that you set the business up for success.
Mm.
And the key part of that is in some cases being equitable, right? If you
Right.
think about it from the perspective, if you're not, what's that big R word, right? What's the risk? And
Yeah.
I try to think about it from that perspective that if I don't or can't do this, what's the risk? And I try to remove the word can't, but if I'm unable to do something, what's the risk?
Right. And we're going to talk more about risk a little bit later because I love that we use that word and just how we can learn to utilize and use that word as a weapon, kind of sort of. Our sword. It's like it's the word risk. So tell me, do you think that most employees see HR as their friend? Is it your friend?
Would say that most employees, depending upon the organization, if in an organization, I will say this has really high engagement, employee engagement, and has built that relationship and trust, then I would say yes. If the organization has not done those things, I would say no.
Yeah.
And you tend to see a lack of trust, or how you stated that employees don't may not really trust HR, and it could be because we don't trust HR, the engagement isn't there, the talent
Mm-hmm.
development or performance development piece isn't there. So it really
Mm-hmm.
depends on a number of factors, and I'm pretty sure we're probably going to talk about in a second.
Yeah, yeah, we are. So so we know that it depends on a lot of factors, it can go on, but don't you think most individuals, and I'm just guessing here,
Yeah.
so this is a Britt Miller hypothetical. Most people think of HR as representing the company and not always for there to support them.
Yes, I would agree with that. I would say most people think about HR from a perspective of, yes, they are there to protect the organization and they are there to make sure that that risk factor doesn't impact the organization. And then when you think about it broadly, one may say, well, the organization involves employees as well. It does,
Right.
because there are moments where, from an HR perspective, while you're looking out for the organization, you're also looking out for employees that could be impacted or affected.
Mm.
But yeah, I think I do agree with you. I think most of the time people look at HR, or employees look at HR as, "Oh my gosh, who's next? Who's about to be
Yeah.
terminated? What did we do that I gotcha?" Or, "Wait a minute, HR is in a room. Let's be quiet, or let's not talk about, what goes on in-house." So,
Yeah, 'cause I remember the day when if you saw HR coming into building, somebody's been fired.
oh yeah,
Some
I definitely I definitely can recall a few of those moments.
Yeah, yeah, I remember a lady, she'd get out of her car and she'd have her little bag and she'd walk up and everybody would, "Uh-oh, who been fired today?" And you knew.
That was back in the day. Remember when it was called personnel, or,
Oh,
it had a
yeah.
very different name.
A different name, a different meaning,
Yes,
but I think HR has kind of always supposed to have been the heartbeat of the company, right? Where
absolutely.
they're real people reflecting real situations, right? So let's get to the elephant in the room. We're getting to. I've been subtle here in our slow motion because we're gonna go into like AI. So AI doesn't have a heartbeat. AI doesn't feel. Being honest, can AI fit into HR?
I would say yes, most certainly. I think the one thing that you have to really focus on and think about is what's truly being fed into the AI. So that's one aspect, right? And then the
Okay.
other aspect is, how do you intend on using the AI? Because when you think about it from an HR perspective, or when I think about it from the business partner perspective, the AI may be able to provide lens into some predictive measures, right? So what does AI predict is going to happen with a particular team when you have 100 employees and you think about the performance of those employees? AI may give you a predictive value or measurement that says, 10% or 15% of these employees are going to perform well,
Right.
while a large portion, 65 or 70% of the employees, are going to be about in the middle, on the verge of going up or down. And then you have that other, 10 to 20% of employees that AI may say, hey, these employees are not going to be performing well, and a next step needs to happen or may need to happen, right? So when you think about it from a business partner, or even a leader perspective, what do we do with that data, right? Because there are times when leaders will say, well, I need to be within a certain range, or I want to be within a certain range when it comes to the employees on my team. And then it becomes, okay, well, wait a minute, why? What's the why?
Yeah.
Why are we
Yeah.
doing that? And if
Yeah.
you are a business partner that it doesn't, I would say interject, or you might not have the relationship with the team, or if you simply you're not someone who pushes back on the business for those whys or those stories, then the business does they'll do what they want. They're like, hey, I'm used to doing what I want. And then you get someone like me who comes in and says, wait a minute,
Right.
no.
Right. 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 But isn't that a lot of data? Because to me, we're missing the human story.
Right.
And it's the human story that can make the difference. It can make or break. Because a lot of the conversations that you are having are quite often with the business, not with the employee.
Right.
But when you do have that conversation and opportunity to learn those human stories, AI can mess that up. I want to use another word, but AI can really, just because it doesn't, again,
AI can cause some infringement or infringement. That's the word.
it can make things kind of funky,
Yeah, kinda, yeah, let's go with that, kinda funky.
because it's missing the human story. Right?
Absolutely.
So how do you feel so this cuz I don't I'm a believer in people to people,
Right.
and when we put the data in there, we lose that human experience. And I really love that word when we
Mhm.
really want to talk about the human experience in HR because HR is about people. But
Right.
now we've interjected this gigantic algorithm,
Yeah,
you
I mean,
know.
when you think about where we are today, right? You think about the
Right.
pace of things today, right? There
Yeah.
is a huge shift in having these conversations and, if you will, getting the story, right?
Right.
And it becomes very much placated upon, well, I have the data, let's roll with it, and we work faster. And while that
Right.
is great, and it might even give you the outcome that you quote unquote want, it
Right.
may not give you the outcome that's needed, right? And it's most certainly not going to give you the outcome that may be fair. So those personal stories become very important to a business partner.
Mhm.
One of the things that I often think about when I'm looking at a employee's performance with the hiring manager, right? There are a number of data pieces. And one that someone taught me where you can actually see a measurable change is sometimes you have to look how many managers has this employee had in a 2-year
Right.
cycle, in a
Right.
1-year cycle, right? Has this employee ever been out on a leave of absence? Was the employee just promoted into the team, right? Where
Right.
did the employee are they new to the organization? So
Right.
there becomes a lot of different factors and different questions that go into, why an employee is performing at the rate or pace in which that employee is performing. AI doesn't tell me that.
It doesn't give you that
AI
story.
might say, hey, this employee is, or we are predicting that this employee may fall here. Obviously a hiring manager or a leader still needs to provide input and in some cases some data. But when we look at a algorithm that says, hey, you should have 5 employees who are rated at the least of the least, and the hiring
Right.
manager or the leader is saying, I don't have 5, I only have 3. Or they might say, hey, I have 7. And then it becomes, okay, well, the algorithm did say 5, or the predictive measurement did say 5. Let's talk about those 3, or let's talk about those 7. And that's when those real stories come in. And the last thing I'll say is, when those real stories start to come in, that's when the questions become, does this make sense? Because does
Right.
this make sense not only for you, does it make sense for the team? Because remember, individual employees' performance still impacts the team, right? So
Right.
think about it from the employee perspective, the team perspective, the leader's perspective, all of these different perspectives that AI is not going to bring into the room, right? So that's when you really
Mhm.
have to have a strong business partner who's willing to uncover some of those details. And you may get pushback from the leader. Sometimes the leader's like, no, this is what it is. This is what I'm keeping. This is what I'm sticking with.
Let's talk about that word you said in there, because I don't think a lot of people understand predictive measurements.
Yes. So when you think about a predictive measurement, you think about a team's overall performance and you think about the ratings possibly for a team over a period of time. So if I have a team, if we go back to the example earlier of 100, I know with this particular leader that each year 10% of their workforce is rated top of the top. I can almost predict that, has anything changed? If nothing's really changed, they have the same type of team. The employees are still there for the most part. Even if you might get some changes within the team, I probably can predict that, hey, this year is probably going to be the same. Just a law of
Right.
averages if you look at it that way.
Right.
So that's kind of where your predictive values and measurements come in. What can sometimes be, I don't want to use the word off putting, but what can sometimes be questioned is those predictive values are for men and women, right?
Yeah.
And then you
That's what I want to get
and then
into.
you
I
and
really
then
want
you
to get
and then you
into this.
can break it
Sure.
down even further, right? You
Mhm.
begin to
Mhm.
break it down by race, gender, demographic, etc. So then that's when you start thinking about, there is a predictive value that yes, 10% of your workforce is top tier or top of the line. How many of those folks are men and how many of those folks are women?
Right.
Let's break that down. And we know in some
Is it
cases,
bias? London, is it bias to break that down?
I don't think it's biased to break it down, right? I think it can become questionable. I'll say for me, it can become
Okay, for you.
questionable when you don't. Because when you think about the performance of a team, unless your team is 100% men, you cannot have an argument, at least for me, to tell me that of your 60 men that are on your team, that only 2 of the 60 are women, and then those women aren't performing at a high level. Because then I have other questions that will begin to rise, right? So when you think
Right.
about a team, unless that team is strictly all men,
Hmm.
there shouldn't be a world where you have 10% of your workforce that is performing at the very highest level, and we have very few women in that category, especially when they're equal, right? I could see if they're not equal. You know, your workforce is 10% women, 90% men. That
Right.
probably makes sense that you're going to have more men in the upper echelon than women.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that questions can't be asked, like, hey, why aren't there any women here? And
Right.
if women aren't performing, then it becomes well, why aren't they performing? And that's when
Right.
you get
Right.
into the performance management piece. Are they getting the same type of performance review as their male counterparts, right? So
Right.
it it can it can uncover some some inconsistencies,
Right.
because
Right.
sometimes, yeah, when you see an inconsistency, it could just be that, like, hey, there's an inconsistency. I don't want to always say that there would be a bias there, but there could be an inconsistency.
An
Have I not,
inconsistency.
or have I ever seen a bias? Really? Um,
Definitely.
yes, that's happened. Oftentimes it's an inconsistency.
Yeah. So I've just pictured in my mind as you were talking, I was picturing like AI just having this really broad brush, right?
Yeah.
Just a broad, broad brush. And when a person, a HRBP or just someone who cares, such as yourself,
Mhm.
is going to uncover those true stories. And it's not the wide brush, it's looking at each individual person. But when you have 300 people, 300 team members, you got 12 leaders that you have to support.
Mhm.
Does AI make more sense? Does it become more effective in the long run?
I will say yes, and here's why. From a timing perspective, and especially you think about a business partner that's traveling, right? That's traveling to all these different sites. If there wasn't a form of AI there, you would be spending a lot of time, just a lot of time trying to do unnecessary math, a lot of time, travel, a lot of time in meetings that probably you don't need to spend. So without AI, you could potentially be doing more damage than not, right? Because you think about it, if you're spending too much time, your mindset is, you know what, I just got to get through this.
Yeah.
If I could touch I want to say the worst of the worst, but if I can touch the worst case scenarios, I'm just touching those,
Fires.
and right, the fires, and then that's it. And then it becomes, well, is that fair? Because sometimes those worst case scenarios, let's say those worst case scenarios or those fires are your lower tier individuals, right? What about your higher tier individuals, right? They can't stay untouched, or you got to give care to those individuals as well. So I would say without the AI, it can become a time waste.
What did we do? I can hear somebody saying, "Well, what did we do before AI? We did the work before AI." Do you think it was as efficient? Would you tell that person we can do it better now?
Absolutely. I would say we could do it better. But I would say before AI, long Excel spreadsheets, meetings that probably lasted a lot longer than what they needed to last. And I would say this: time suck. Just a time suck. I mean, you think about the goal of a business partner, and I'm here to help the team meet their objectives, line on those objectives and goals, and move forward, right? But when you think about talent planning, succession planning, or talent reviews, right? You need to put in some real work into that, because you're thinking about the future of the organization and who those future leaders of the organization will be. So you want to give it your all. I mean, I operated in a space where that's what it was. It was Excel spreadsheets and me picking out, all right, these 10 people have had, multiple managers in the year. Okay, these 10 people are new to the organization. These 15 people have just moved to this org. Like, it can become, what am I really looking for? And it just becomes a time suck. I think with the AI, if I know that there are some predictive measures, and oftentimes those predictive measures are accurate, right? Because they are based on averages. Then I
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
really just narrow down the focus and say, okay, I only got 4 people for this, 3 people for that, 5 people for this. I can knock that out the park easily. We get this done in, you would think, we get this done in 45 minutes, 30, 45
Yeah.
minutes. But then, you start to uncover, some stories. I'll give an example. One of the things that I used to always look at was new individuals to an organization, and they were rated at the very top of the scale.
Oh, yeah.
And it
Oh, yeah.
becomes, okay, I have questions. They're new to
Yeah.
the organization. And it could be they're new to the role, or they're just new to the organization, with new to the role within the organization. So both are new. Or you have someone who's internal and they're new to this opportunity. So it's like, okay, they've
Mhm.
been here less than 12 months and they've been rated, given this, they're the best of the best. They're the cream of the crop. Okay, what did they do in less than 12 months? Because in my view, they moved the mountain. Like, it's not unreasonable, but
There
you
could
have
be
to
some
have
bias
be
there
able to
because they're
defend
new.
that. Yeah. You have to be able
Yeah.
to defend that. And because my concern is we have people who are in roles who may deserve that rating and they're not getting that rating, and you gave it to someone, not gave, but someone received that rating and they're new to the organization.
Do you think it's because their blood is fresher? Maybe the employee who's been there longer has seen more of the feels more of the ick, you know?
Think is to your point, I think it's easier when you're in the organization and you move to a new role within the organization, right? I think it's
Mhm.
harder to do that when you're new to the organization, right? Because you have to learn the culture, you have to learn the people, you have to learn what your leaders want, you have to learn what does the organization do. There's so much that you have to learn, I think, as a new employee for any organization. Is that all attainable in less than 12 months? I had a leader that said to me, um, this is up maybe 10 years ago. And she said, I was able to ascertain my new role in 18 months. And she was promoted. And someone asked her, very simply, how'd you do it? I spent the first 6 months learning my role. I spent the following 6 months operating in that role, right? So really trying to knock
Mm.
it out of the park. And then the
Mhm.
following 6 months, I spent operating in the role that I wanted. Meaning, if I was a senior manager, I spent 6 months learning my role. The next 6 months really operating and owning that. And then the following 6 months operating at that director or whatever the next step is above a senior manager. So for her, she would say, if you move to a new role and it was a promotion in less than 12 months from a role like a senior manager to a director, as a leader myself, I would have questions because it's
Okay.
very hard to do that. Not impossible, but very hard. So I kind of operate on that frame of mind, and for roles that I've seen at just about all of the places in which I've worked, I've seen that philosophy at work. So
Right.
when I see it done differently, I will ask questions.
So I'm on the team. I'm a woman on the team. How do I ensure that my HRBP partner, my HRBP, right? My business partner understands my story. That's looking out for me. I don't think people even understand because again, we've talked about this before where people get into the feel, felt and found.
Mhm.
They get into their
The
feelings,
feelings.
right?
Yeah.
So, how can you what advice can you add when we're really talking about because when I hear the data, I don't hear the story, right?
Right.
And when I hear working with the leaders, that still doesn't speak to me, because I'm not a leader. I hope I aspire to be one if that's what I want, but I'm not. I'm
Mhm.
working every day trying to get a raise and keep going and feeding kids. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I do want to achieve something. What would your advice be to me?
First,
Is it
I
is
would
it
say,
difficult? Is it hard?
let's start with your leader, right? What is that
Mm,
relationship, right? And how do you drive that relationship first with your leader? Because when you think about an HR business partner, exactly as you said, and in some cases, the employee doesn't even know who their HR business partner is. So,
then they
the first thing is to start with your leader. Starting with your leader will really help drive what it is that you're looking to accomplish within the team, and what you may be looking to accomplish beyond the team, and what you may need in order to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish from the leader, right? So I think you have to start there. I think sometimes we bypass the leader and go straight to HR, and it can be uncomfortable, not just for the leader. It will become uncomfortable or could become uncomfortable for you. So I
Mhm.
always say start there. When you feel like that may not be an avenue that's working to your satisfaction, and this is something that I've done, I
Mhm.
will pull back and I really write down what's all the things that I've done, all the things that I've done that I've tried to get my leader to understand. And if there's anything that's been missed, right? And when I say anything that's been missed, hey, anything that I may have done to, um, I don't want to use the word sabotage, but anything that I may have done to throw a wrench in that plan, right? Did I miss a project? Did I
Mhm.
miss a deadline? Did I, was I late on the deliverable? Think about those things too, right? Because you don't want to appear that you're going to your leader in that feeling of, look at all the things that I've done. Look at all the things that I've done. You've not noticed all the things that I've done. Because you don't want your leader to
Right.
say, you're so right. You've done all these things, but I can't get you to deliver a project on time. Then that becomes a, well, okay, a different
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
So once you've
Yeah.
done that and you're able to have that conversation with your leader, if that still doesn't work, I say the second notion, schedule what I like to call your 5-on-5 or your 5-4-5. And 5-on-5 or 5-4-5 is 5 minutes with the leader where you talk for 5 minutes and you give your leader 5 minutes. That is it. That
Mm.
conversation should not last any longer than that. Step three, if
Mhm.
that still doesn't work, I would say, yeah, you will need to reach out to your HR business partner, but come to your HR business partner, obviously with the things that you've written down, but also go to them. What's your objective? What do you want to get out of it? What's the goal? And talk to him or her through that. And I think once you talk your HR business partner through that, then their mindset is going to begin to look at you probably a little bit different. That this person is someone who came to me, with a strategy, and it could have been, it was very tactical what you did, but you have a goal and an
Right.
objective, right? And HR business partners love that. Like I love when a hiring manager can come to me and it's tactical and it's strategic and they have the objective and the goal. Like I love that. Like half the battle is done because now I know what I
Sure.
need to do, right? It works the same way for an employee. The same
Yeah.
exact way.
Yeah. Yeah. Should someone just say, "Hey, London. Hey, this is Britt. I just want you to know that I'm on Jim's team, you know, and I just want you to know who I am." Do you have time for that?
Yeah, and often if it's a new business partner, I have done that. And it
Yeah.
wasn't there was nothing wrong, right? But I was able to say, "Hey, you're a new business partner for the team. I know you support, our team from an XYZ perspective. I have an idea about something. I haven't shared it with my leader, but it's just an idea about something. And it could be something that you want to do, right? Even if it
Right.
gets back to your leader, like, hey, so and so reached out. Oh gosh. Because the first thing the leader's going to say, why did they reach out to you? Well, I
Yeah. Yeah.
knew they wanted to talk to me about an idea they had and get my thoughts from an HR perspective. Like, maybe do I see any risk associated? Do I see, would any assistance be needed? Like, so I can see an employee going straight to an HR business partner sometime without necessarily going to their leader, especially if you have that relationship, right? And I've had
Yeah.
employees do that with me where they've said, London, I want to talk to you about something. And there wasn't anything wrong. They wanted to talk to me about something like, hey, I really feel empowered to do this. I don't feel the need to go through my manager with this, but do you see any issues or what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
I
Kind of
love that.
strategize.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
much strategizing. I love that because at the end of the day, if that does move forward, the first person they're going to say is, hey, did you reach out to the business partner or do you want me as your leader to reach out to the business partner to discuss this?
Right.
And if I'm the leader and you tell me, hey, I've already discussed it with the business partner, we're good, then I'm really looking at you like, okay.
Wow.
And there's
You
nothing
kind of
wrong. And we're talking about a team win,
yeah.
possibly a team
Yeah.
win. Like we can all celebrate. So it can
It just
work to your
yeah,
advantage.
it can empower you when the hey situation, like, hey. Now let's talk about the opposite of a hey situation where
Absolutely.
this person needs some empowering words. And we talked about that word earlier, risk. And so I want
Yes.
to circle back there. And I really want to talk about risk and how we can use that word to empower us in those conversations that we need to have, or even to know how to use and understand what a risk is. And I think we all know, that's a risk, but it's kind of different in that world. And I think we forget to use that word. And we've talked about it. Explain it to me. It's real interesting.
Yeah, so when you think about risk from a HR business partner perspective or a business partner in any facet, the number one thing, of course,